We're speaking with the independent member for Mildura, Ali Cupper, about all things rail. How's it going, Ali?
Good, Ricky. Thank you.
And look, we're minding the gap. You've been wanting people to mind the gap. What is this all about when it comes to rail services to Mildura?
Yeah, well, there's a big gap between the sort of investment and attention that we've received across, decades by, successive governments, between what, we have received and what other regions have received. We just don't. We have been badly left behind in terms of rail, and that's across those two major functions of passenger and freight.
And when you look at the passenger side of it, there was a V-Line service some time ago, of course, but I gather that you can't just simply start running that service again. Is it because of all the level crossings and concerns now about safety compared to the previous era?
Well, look, we sent a man to the moon in the 60s, Ricky. I reckon that there'd be an engineering solution to getting a passenger train from Mildura to Maryborough. There might be logistical issues. There might be level crossings that need to be dealt with. There might be stations that need upgrading and all of that sort of stuff. But the point is, passenger transport, public transport, is an essential public service. You provide it to people within your state. Modern democracies, modern liberal democracies, where they value, people and connectivity and, upward mobility and standard of living and all of those sorts of things. They provide public transport as a matter of necessity, and indeed the Victorian government does. There are 10 major cities, regional cities in Victoria with proper designated status as that, and all of them have a passenger train connection to Melbourne except for us, and it's not okay. It's a significant service gap, and we think that it needs to be addressed.
And amongst your campaign material, you've talked about minding the population gap. I guess in some respects the need for this service is increasing when you look at the Regional Australia Institute data out on Thursday showing a 59% increase in the last 3 reporting months of people moving to Mildura. A lot of housing development going on there.
Oh yeah, look, absolutely. We're a growing region. There's many beautiful things about outback Victoria, and we're very proud of those things. And people are seeing it, and people are coming here, and all the more reason to boost our infrastructure to this region. I say it all the time. We farmed a desert in the Mallee. We are and turned it into an economic powerhouse. It is in the state's best interest, it's in the nation's best interest to be able to support us to do what we do, to be able to connect us so that we've got all those basic services with the city. So we're more likely to stay in Mildura because we know that we can easily access services outside if we need them. And also in terms of freight, so that we know that our farmers can get maximum returns.
And
all of that money comes back into our local economy and makes us bigger and stronger, and we can contribute more.
It's an important point you also make on freight as well. There's been a great couple of years on the land, and the projections are it could be as good, if not better, in terms of yield, which means there's going to be a whole lot going out on trucks that could have otherwise gone on rail.
Yeah, that's right. And look, we were badly done over in terms of the Murray Basin Rail project. The Victorian Auditor General's report is just hard to even read. There was just so many mistakes and mishaps along the way. And one of the big underlying issues was that it was grossly undercosted. And on the basis of bad advice, and it wasn't, it's multiple governments that bought that bad advice. It was the Napthine government that budgeted the initial $220 million on the basis that if the feds contributed $220 as well, it would do the entire thing. It would standardise, almost 1,000 kilometres of track, and it would, complete the Ballarat rail corridor, and would do all these extraordinary things. The truth is, $440 million just wasn't enough. It was never enough. But the Andrews government backed it in, and then the federal, I think it was Turnbull at the time, or one of the, during that era anyway, Abbott or
hard
Turnbull,
to keep track of which Prime Minister
it was.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. But, they backed it in as well. And so what I'm saying now and what our local industry is saying is that we've got to break the impasse now. We're all just arguing about whose fault it was and how terrible it was. And I'm fine. Look, that's good. Have an opinion. These are legitimate things to discuss and debate. The problem is, though, it's an impasse in terms of forward momentum. So what I'm saying is we need to accept that it was the Victorian government's decision to close out that project. it was a train wreck, I get it, but it's been closed out. Now, let's talk about what next. Let's have a new deal for freight. Let's include full standardisation. Let's not abandon that because that's in our best interest, but let's also identify other things that we can do too, which our industry operators are saying we need to do, that are quicker wins, that will still help edge us towards getting more freight off the roads and onto rail as we work towards that bigger vision of full standardisation.
Now, this is often referred to almost by everyone. We talked about the Murray Basin Rail as a political football. It makes me think of the footy team I follow. They seem to handball the ball around and never kick a goal. You know, what is the goal? What is one thing that is actually achievable or a policy commitment you're making that we could actually get done, say, on Murray Basin Rail or freight?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, there are certain things that have been identified, things that don't even cost money, but that relate to, say, speed limits or relate to heat restrictions, things like that, you know, signalling that could be improved that would make the trips more efficient. But, you know, I mean, apart from that, I guess at a different level, and again, this is not me just inventing an idea because, I mean, at the end of the day, Ricky, like I'm not a farmer or an engineer, so I take my from people who are, but they're saying, look, the sector wants certainty. They want to know what the government's going to do over the next 15 to 30 years, so they can prepare and they can make their investment decisions based on that. You know, in terms of rolling stock and trucks and things like that. You know, logistical stuff at their intermodals and all of those sorts of details. And so it was put to me by one of our operators that we need a ministerial task force that looks at the needs of our agriculture sector over the next 15 to 30 years and what the government needs to do towards that. So the government is very clear. So we have a very clear pipeline of projects and priorities and benchmarks. So it's not just kind of like a piecemeal of we want that project over there and then, oh, hang on, there's one over here, we'll do that. We need it to be integrated. We need it to be logical. We need it to be transparent. We need to make sure that we've consulted with every single stakeholder out there and we need it to be properly, reliably costed so we do not repeat the last mistake of the Murray Basin Rail project, which, let's face it, has broken hearts all across the Mallee and it was a tragic false promise.
Well, Andrew's Labor government's had a lot to say about climate change. Shouldn't that seal the deal on getting somewhere on Murray Basin Rail, given how many trucks are going to have to move next year's crop as well? Shouldn't that get it over the line of reducing emissions?
Absolutely, that's right. I mean, look, you know, we need to move the dial here, you know, in terms of climate change, and the Mallee wants to contribute to that cause. By the way, we are in the eye of the storm. We've got extreme weather anyway. That's our baseline. You know, if it gets much hotter, I don't know how the miller was going to, continue to farm. You know, we are really facing an existential threat. So yes, we want to contribute to the cause of holding back climate change. This would be a really obvious way to do it. And aside from that, too, it's a community safety argument. You know, we don't want to be, sharing roads with these massive road trains. They're getting bigger and stronger and more dangerous all the time, and ripping up roads, so causing more and more, pressure on the road upgrades and all of those sorts of things. I mean, we know that from the Robinvale Sea Lake Road. You know, it's falling apart. We managed to get $13 million for that. I had to protest outside of Parliament like Greta Thunberg, and I felt like a total knob, but we got the money. But we're hearing feedback already about the parts that have already been fixed. They're starting to crumble away already because of the size and the weight of those trucks. So look, all roads, pardon the pun, lead to, just needing. We need better rail infrastructure. We have no choice. We need to break this impasse. Anything nasty that anyone has to say about the Murray Basin Rail project, I take it on board. I agree with you, but we need to talk about a new chapter now, because otherwise we're just stuck.
And I notice in the contest you've got in the state election, you've got a Liberal and National candidate. I'm not quite clear about whether there's a Labor candidate, but it's going to be a hot contest, the perfect environment to get some solid commitments on this.
That's it, absolutely. I mean, when I was running in 2018, we did some numbers, we put them out there and we said the big parties are failing us, because they were. now they're fighting over us. I mean, this is exactly where we want to be as a region. We want to be political hot property. That's how you leverage the sorts of things and the benefits and advantages that other regions can take for granted. You know, I mean, we had the Liberals fly into Mildura to announce $750 million for a brand new hospital. That a promise of that magnitude has never been made. Certainly not in my living memory. That is truly game changing. The fact that we are getting their attention in that way is showing that if you make contests hot and close, then your electorate wins.
All right.
So yeah.
We're 12 weeks or so out from that, so the temperature will keep rising. Ali Cupper, thanks for joining us today. We'll keep watching closely.
Thanks, Ricky.